Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to week 6 of our content course. If you've been with us through the entire course, take a moment to recognize how far you've come. You started this program by asking the most fundamental question in content strategy. Why does this content exist? You've moved through planning, craft, guardrails, and refinement. Today, we're going to tie it all together. This week is about systems, not more tools, not more platforms, not more content for its own sake. It's about building a workflow that takes the expertise that's already sitting inside your practice and turns it into a sustainable, repeatable engine for content that performs. One piece of content multiplied intelligently, distributed strategically, and reviewed by a human who understands the stakes.
The system phase is where everything you've learned becomes operational. It's where strategy stops being a document and starts being a workflow. It's where AI tools stop being something you use occasionally and start being something that runs in the background of your content operation every week. Look at what the system phase contains: scalable content workflows, integrated tech stack, a continuous learning loop, a quality first culture, and long term trust building. None of those things happen by accident. They're built deliberately, piece by piece, with clear roles for AI and clear responsibilities for the humans who supervise it. The result at the bottom of this diagram, trusted, authoritative content that serves human needs and is readily understood by answer engines, is what a system produces. Not a single great piece, a compounding, sustainable body of work that gets stronger over time because the process behind it is sound. That's what we're building today.
I want to start with something I genuinely believe and something I see confirmed every time we work with a new law firm or healthcare practice. You are sitting on a gold mine of expertise. You have spent years, and in many cases decades, answering the same questions your clients and patients ask. You know what they're afraid of. You know what they don't understand. You know what they wish someone had explained to them before they walked in your door. That knowledge is extraordinarily valuable, and I'd be willing to bet that almost none of it is currently visible on your website. The problem has never been a shortage of expertise. It's a shortage of time and systems to convert that expertise into content. A busy attorney simply doesn't have 3 hours to write a blog post. A physician who's between appointments doesn't have the bandwidth to turn a patient Q&A into a YouTube video. What we're building today is the bridge between that expertise and the content strategy that puts it to work. And the promise of this session is exactly what it says on the slide. One piece of content multiplied into many, with AI doing the heavy lifting.
This idea is at the heart of everything we're doing today, and it connects to something you might have noticed without ever putting into words. Look at the Foster Consulting logo. Our visual identity is inspired by the atom because it captures something true about how we think about knowledge, strategy, and the energy that expert professionals carry with them every single day. The nucleus is at the center. The electrons orbit around it, structure and motion all at once. The content atom model is this concept made operational. Every piece of content you create is an atom. It creates potential energy. A well-written blog post, a webinar you recorded, a client Q&A session, each of those has inherent value sitting inside it. The insight is real. The expertise is genuine. But when you leave it as a single piece in a single format on a single channel, most of that energy goes unrealized. It just sits there inert. The nucleus has no orbit. In physics, the atom gets its power from what happens when you split it. You release energy that was always there, locked inside the structure. The content atom works exactly the same way. When you take one piece of content and using AI as your accelerator, split it into multiple formats for multiple channels, you're not creating new energy. You're releasing the energy that was already there in the ideas, in the expertise, in the words you already said or wrote. You're not creating more work. You're getting exponentially more out of the work you've already done. Think about what that looks like at scale. One blog post becomes your LinkedIn content for 2 weeks. One webinar becomes 3 months of social posts, an email newsletter, an FAQ page, and a downloadable guide. One client Q&A session, a conversation you are already having, becomes a video series, a podcast episode outline, and a collection of pull quotes for Instagram and LinkedIn. The input stays exactly the same. The output multiplies. Those orbiting electrons, that's your content ecosystem. The newsletter orbiting outward, the social posts, the FAQ page, the video clip, the downloadable checklist, all of them drawing energy from the same nucleus, your expertise, and carrying it to different audiences in different formats on different channels. For attorneys and healthcare providers with limited time and genuine expertise, this isn't a marketing trick. It's the only rational approach to content. You've spent years, in many cases decades, building the knowledge at the center of the atom. The question has never been whether the energy is there, it always was. The question was whether you had a system to release it. AI is that system, and it makes this possible in a way that simply wasn't true 5 years ago.
Let's ground this in data because I know that some of you are practical people who want to see the numbers before you invest. 81% of client research providers online before making any contact. That means that your website and the content that's on it is the first impression you make on the overwhelming majority of your potential clients and patients. Before they ever call your office, before they ever read a Google review, before a referral partner's recommendation even has a chance to sink in. Essentially, they've already been to your website and formed an opinion. Email newsletters deliver $42 in return for every dollar spent. That is, by a significant margin, the highest ROI of any marketing channel. And yet most law firms and healthcare practices either don't have an email list, don't send consistently, or send content that isn't genuinely useful enough to keep people subscribed. This is one of the most significant missed opportunities we see across our client base. In thought leadership content, the educational, expert-driven content we've been building toward all course generates 3 times more leads than traditional outbound marketing for professional services. Not slightly more, 3 times more. These numbers exist because of something fundamental about how trust works in legal and healthcare services. People don't choose a lawyer or a doctor the way they choose a restaurant. The stakes are so much higher. The decision is more personal, and the relationship they're entering into requires real trust. Content is how you build that trust before anyone walks in the door.
Here's something that might surprise you. The channels where most law firms and healthcare practices are least active are often the ones with the greatest potential for their specific audience. LinkedIn is the most obvious underused channel for professionals. If your practice serves businesses, executives, other professionals, or referral sources, and most do, LinkedIn is where those people are. Long-form thought leadership content on LinkedIn gets indexed by Google, stays visible for months, and reaches exactly the professional audience that can send you business. Most firms treat it as an afterthought. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. A 2-minute video of you answering a common question, filmed on your phone in your office with decent lighting, can rank in YouTube search and build trust in a way that text alone cannot. Your face, your voice, your direct explanation. That is what converts a skeptical person into a caller. Email newsletters, as we covered on the last slide, are the highest ROI channel available to you. And yet most practices either don't have one or don't send consistently enough to build real readership. A monthly newsletter with one genuinely useful piece of information keeps your name in front of people who already trust you and makes them far more likely to refer you when the opportunity comes up. And Pinterest, which might seem unexpected for professional services, consistently drives strong long-term traffic for educational and how-to content. If your practice produces downloadable guides, infographics, or step-by-step explanations of complex processes, Pinterest is worth a look. The deeper point here is about trust as a currency. In legal and healthcare fields, clients and patients choose providers they feel they already know, not providers with the most impressive credentials on paper, providers who feel familiar, accessible, and safe. Consistent educational content creates that familiarity before the first appointment or consultation is ever booked. It is the most authentic form of relationship building available to a professional practice.
Okay, the content multiplication framework starts with a single principle. Create once, distribute everywhere. One long form pillar piece, whether that's a blog post, a webinar recording, a client Q&A session, or a podcast episode, becomes the source that you're going to use for everything else. Think about what this means practically. You sit down with a client and record a 45-minute Q&A session answering the 10 most common questions that you hear. That session is your atom. You transcribe it. Then you upload the transcript to your AI tool and generate a long form blog post, an email newsletter, 5 LinkedIn posts, 10 short social captions, an FAQ page for your website, a short video script for each of the top 3 questions, and a downloadable checklist. That's the output of a 45-minute conversation. One conversation you are probably already going to have anyway. Now multiply that by 12. If you record one Q&A session per month, or one webinar, or one podcast episode, or even write one well-researched blog post, and you run that through this framework, you have a full year of consistent multi-channel content. Not content that you scrambled to produce, content that came directly from your professional expertise that's been captured once and distributed intelligently. The 4 buckets on this slide map the distribution channels cleanly. Social content includes LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. It gets short form content drawn from the pillar, but these aren't just going to be summaries or teasers pointing people back to the original. They're standalone pieces that deliver real value on the platforms where they live. A LinkedIn post that shares one insight from your webinar in a way that makes a busy professional stop scrolling is doing its job, whether or not they ever decide to click through and read the full article. The goal on your social media channels is presence and trust building, not traffic generation. Audio and video get scripts and outlines. This is where professionals who are more comfortable speaking than writing find their biggest leverage. A 2-minute video script that answers one question from your Q&A session is going to be ready to record in just 15 minutes. A podcast outline that's drawn from a long-form blog post means you show up to the microphone prepared instead of simply improvising. Email and documents get newsletters, follow-up sequences, and downloadable assets. This is often the highest ROI bucket for professional service practices. An email newsletter derived from your pillar piece goes directly to people who already trust you enough to have given you their inbox. A downloadable checklist or one-page guide becomes a lead magnet on your website, a resource that you hand to new clients at their first appointment, or something a referral partner can pass along when they are sending someone your way. These assets have a shelf life that social posts don't. They're going to keep working long after you created them. Each of these buckets has a different format, a different audience relationship, and a different job to do, but all of them can trace back to the same source. That's the efficiency, and that's the leverage. You're making one significant creative investment, but then you're getting returns across every channel simultaneously. However, we must be clear about what AI is doing in this framework, because I think there's sometimes a misunderstanding about this that creates hesitation. AI is not going to write your content from scratch. It's not inventing ideas, fabricating expertise, or producing something that didn't exist before. It's taking your expertise, the thing you said, the knowledge you shared, and the answer you gave, and restructuring it for different formats and different audiences. The substance of this content is entirely yours. AI is just the production layer that makes the multiplication process possible without you having to start over every time. I like to think of this the way you think of a skilled production assistant. If you gave a great speech, a production assistant could transcribe it, pull your 5 best quotes, draft a summary for the people who couldn't attend, and write the promotional copy for the recording, all without adding a single idea that wasn't already in what you said. That's exactly what AI is going to do here. The intellectual work is yours, but the production work is what's being shared. We're not asking you to become a content creator on top of everything else you already do. You're not being asked to capture expertise you're already sharing and you are being asked to capture the expertise you're already sharing in consultations, in Q&As, in presentations, and in the answers you give to your patients and clients week after week. And let a system distribute it.
Let's make this concrete with a real example so you can see exactly what this looks like in practice. Take a 1,000-word blog post about the 10 mistakes people most often make after being injured in a car accident. From that single post, AI can generate a LinkedIn native text post with a compelling hook, 3 key insights, and a call to action written in your professional voice. Not a link to the blog, an original post that delivers standalone value and drives engagement directly on the platform. LinkedIn rewards this format heavily right now. The same blog post becomes a Twitter thread, 5 to 8 short posts that break each mistake into digestible, shareable pieces. A strong opener pulls people in. Each subsequent tweet adds one idea. The final tweet links to the full article for anyone who wants more. An Instagram caption, short, punchy, with a hook and hashtags adjusted for a more conversational audience tone. The same information, just more visually appealing and easier to engage in. And a LinkedIn poll. The main argument framed as an engaging question that drives interaction and expands your organic reach. Polls consistently outperform standard posts for visibility, and they're easy to generate from almost any piece of educational content. In fact, top 10 lists are ideal for this type of content because you could theoretically generate one question for each item on the list. Here's what I want you to notice. AI isn't copy pasting from the blog post. It's adjusting tone for each platform, translating formal legal or clinical language into something that resonates with the specific audience on each channel. That translation used to require a skilled social media writer. Now it takes a well-constructed prompt and a few minutes of human review.
The same pillar piece that fuels your social media can also power your longer form channels. And this is where the real leverage lives for most practices, because these formats tend to drive higher quality engagement and stronger conversions. A video script that's 2 or 3 minutes in length with a hook, 3 key points, and a clear call to action can be ready to record or load into a teleprompter. If you've ever thought you wanted to create video content but didn't know where to start, this is your starting point. You already did the hard work when you wrote the blog post. The script is just the same information in a slightly different shape. If you really wanted to dial it up a notch, you could then use AI to tweak that 10 mistakes after a car accident blog into video scripts that are aimed at specific audiences. This could be parents of minor children who've been injured in car accidents, teen drivers who are worried they'll be blamed for something that wasn't actually their fault, or older adults who have a lot of pre-existing conditions and fear that that car accident might be what gets their license taken away. Email newsletters are clean, readable formatted text with a compelling subject line, a brief intro that provides the context, key takeaways, and then offers a natural next step. This alone, if sent consistently to a list of paid existing clients, referral partners, and prospective patients, is worth more than what most advertising campaigns involve spending for a small practice. A PDF handout can be a lead magnet on your website, a resource that you're handing to clients at their first appointment, a shareable asset for referral partners. It's one document that's extending the reach of your expertise into the offline world. This is one of the highest performing content types for search and for AEO because it directly answers questions that people ask before they've decided to call you. For our 10 mistakes to avoid after a car accident example, you could create a checklist of what you should actually do. Finally, we have a slide deck. This is a structured presentation for SlideShare or LinkedIn documents that repurposes your expertise into a shareable professional visual format. Attorneys and physicians who speak at conferences or other events already have this material. AI is just making it easier to get it into a publishable format.
Transcribing webinars and calls into content assets is one of the most underused opportunities in professional practice content strategy, and it might be the single highest leverage thing you take away from today. You are already doing things that are worth content. You're presenting at conferences, you're running client education sessions, you're answering the same 15 questions in consultations week after week, you're hosting webinars, you're doing CLE presentations. Every one of those is a content atom waiting to be unlocked. The workflow is 2 steps. Step 1, capture and transcribe. Tools like Otter AI, Fireflies, or Zoom's built-in transcription do this automatically. You record what you're going to do anyway. The transcription happens in the background. You now have raw text that represents your actual spoken expertise, your natural vocabulary, your explanations, your examples. Step 2, feed it into AI. Upload the transcript to your custom GPT or your Claude project. We'll talk about those in a minute. And generate a full suite of content derivatives. Not generic content written in an AI voice, content derived directly from what you said, restructured for different formats, reviewed by you before publication. What does one 45-minute webinar produce? A full blog post from the transcript, a how-to guide or a white paper, short 60 to 90-second video clips for LinkedIn, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts, a Q&A only blog post built from audience questions, a key takeaways email for registrants and non-attendees, and 3 months of social content with only a few hours of human review. 3 months of content from a single 45-minute session. That is what the content atom model makes possible.
Let me tell you where the best content ideas come from, because it's probably not where you think. They're going to come from your waiting room, your intake calls, your first consultations, the questions that clients are asking before they sign a retainer, the things that patients want to know before they schedule surgery, the phrases people use when they're confused, scared, or trying to figure out whether they even have a problem worth addressing. These questions are already validated by real audience needs. You don't have to guess whether anyone wants to know the answer, because you know that they do, and someone's already asked you about this yesterday. And because these questions are coming from real people who are in real situations, content that's built around them is going to feel completely natural. It won't read like manufactured marketing. It'll read like someone who knows this field is talking to someone who needs to understand it. A Your Questions Answered blog series addresses real client questions in depth and builds both SEO authority and demonstrated expertise. A public FAQ page that answers common questions before the first consultation, which improves search rankings and also makes your intake process more efficient because clients arrive better informed. Short educational videos answering one question each are ideal for YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and LinkedIn video. And an Ask the Expert section in your monthly email newsletter is going to keep the format fresh and the content genuinely useful. Here's a practical suggestion. For the next 30 days, keep a running note on your phone. Every time a client or patient asks you something that you've answered before, write it down. By the end of the month, you'll have a content calendar, not topics that you invented, but topics that your audience has handed you.
Case studies and client success stories are among the most compelling content a professional can share and among the most underused. Think about what a case study actually does. It demonstrates real-world expertise in a way no credential can match. A law degree and 20 years of experience are impressive on a bio page. A story about a client who came to you facing a catastrophic situation and left with a resolution that changed their life is persuasive in a completely different way. It shows rather than tells. It lets a prospective client or patient see themselves in the person you helped. Structured around the problem, process, outcome, case studies become blog posts, testimonial style social posts with appropriate consent, before and after presentation slides for speaking engagements, and conference submission examples and speaking proposals. One story, multiple formats, sustained reach. I do want to be direct about the compliance piece here because it matters enormously in both legal and healthcare contexts. Every client reference must be fully anonymous. Appropriate consent must be obtained, not buried in an intake form, but specific and informed. Every case study must be reviewed by a human professional before publication. AI can help you structure a case study, identify the most compelling narrative arc, and adapt it for different formats. But the compliance decisions are not AI's to make, they are yours. The guardrail we established in week 4 applies here directly. AI assists with format and distribution. It never substitutes for professional judgment about what can be published and how.
Thank you, Jen. I'd just like to point out that at Foster, for our clients who are getting monthly content services, we often find that case studies are missing from our client websites, or when they begin their content package, they're expressed in just numbers or a brief 2-sentence description. What we really love to do is use AI to turn these into full stories that people want to hear. And then as you continue to add more content to your site, you can link to these repeatedly to demonstrate your expertise. Do you have anything you'd like to add on that, Jen?
Agreed. When I talk to lawyers or doctors about what to include, I ask them to think about what their client or patient was really afraid of when they came to them, what obstacles they faced in the case, what difference they felt they made in the outcome of the case, and how that outcome really impacted the life of their client or patient. And you
Those are
can
all
tell
really
all of that in a way without, violating any efficacy laws, rules.
Yeah, I think sometimes our clients are a little hesitant to share that stuff because they feel like they're bragging. So it
Right.
takes some getting used to think about what you've done and how you've made a difference. But once you have a few case results, you can then create a project in ChatGPT or Claude, which we'll talk about later, and then reference those as examples. And that's going to save you a ton of time as you continue to build out the case study section of your website. All right, and our next slide, perfect timing here, is actually an introduction to custom GPTs and ChatGPT. And this is going to be one of the tools that's going to make your content system work at scale. Custom GPTs are a great place to start because they're going to be the most accessible entry point for a small practice. A custom GPT is a pre-configured AI assistant that's built with your specific instructions. It includes your tone of voice, your required disclaimers, your specialty knowledge, your formatting preferences. So essentially, instead of starting from scratch each time you need AI assistant, your custom GPT is going to already know who you are, how you write, and what rules you want to follow. Think of this as hiring a content assistant who has read every piece of content your practice has ever produced, memorized your brand guidelines, and never forgets to include your legal or medical disclaimers. That assistant is ready to work every time you open ChatGPT with no rebriefing required. What does a well-configured custom GPT do? It always writes in your established tone, whether that's formal, approachable, or somewhere in between. It automatically includes the required legal or medical disclaimers in every piece of content without you needing to add them manually. It outputs content in the exact format you need every time. And if you upload webinar transcripts or sample content during the setup, it's going to learn your actual speaking and writing style and expertise, so the output sounds like you and not a generic AI assistant. You can expect to invest a fair amount of time in creating and modifying the prompts and source materials for your custom GPT. But keep in mind, this is going to be a one-time investment that requires an update only every 6 months or so as the AI models change. Once that custom GPT is configured, all of your future content requests benefit from that foundation. You're not re-explaining your brand, your disclaimers, or your specialty every time you sit down to create something.
Claude projects work on the same principle as custom GPTs, with a few important differences that make them particularly well suited for professional services content teams. Claude projects are persistent workplaces. You upload your brand guidelines, past content samples, audience personas, and webinar transcripts to a project, and Claude maintains full context for every task you run through it. Unlike a standard chat session that starts fresh each time, a project remembers everything you've shared and applies it consistently across every content request. For practices with multiple team members involved in content, this is especially powerful. Every person who accesses the project is working from the same foundation, the same voice, the same formatting standards, the same compliance requirements. Brand consistency stops being a manual enforcement problem. It becomes a built-in feature of the system. And if you upload a webinar transcript directly to your Claude project, what you get back is not generic AI content. You get content derived from what your professional actually said, in the way they actually said it, restructured for a new format. That authenticity is exactly what's missing from most AI assisted content, and is what makes the Claude project approach genuinely different. Claude Cowork extends this further by enabling non-technical team members to automate file and task workflows without writing a single line of code. An admin or marketing coordinator can set up automated content pipelines that process new transcripts, generate derivatives, and organize outputs. The professional provides the expertise, the system handles the production.
Thank you, Jen. I think one of the questions I get the most often when I talk to people about using AI to create content is what the content team is using. At Foster, we use both ChatGPT and Claude. However, we typically rely on Claude projects for the majority of our work. And the main reason that is because the projects are a lot easier for us to share with the other members of our content team. We have, depending on the month, anywhere between 10 and 15 people working on our news site content and our services content. And having a centralized database of projects allows them to quickly and easily create blogs, library articles, and FAQs. And then because we have so many example documents that are added into each project, the content that's produced from these has a very distinct Foster style. And that style includes elements of my writing. It includes elements of Jen's writing. It includes elements of all of the members on our content team who've been here for 5, 6, even 10 or more years. However,
I agree.
ChatGPT does have a lot of advantages. One thing I like to use ChatGPT for is fact checking the output of our Claude content. You also use it a lot in content planning, right, Jen?
I do. And what I was going to chime in with was the fact checking. I like to sort of play the AIs against each other and make sure that they're telling the truth.
Yeah,
But
I
yes, I
really
do.
think that there is value in having subscriptions to both, and the cost is so minimal. Do you have a preference, Jessica? Which one that you like to use?
I feel like I go back and forth. I was favoring chat, but then when we were playing around with co-work, I think I'm gonna be a trader and go over to Claude and co-work for a while, and we'll see who kind of like, edges ahead next.
Exactly. In my paid personal subscriptions, I've bounced back and forth between ChatGPT and Claude quite a bit over the last 2
Mhm.
years. What about you, Kate? Do you have a preference for which model that you like?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Claude for a number of reasons. I just think it's so great at capturing voice, and the writing is consistently good. Obviously,
Mhm.
still needs editorial oversight. But if I need to create an image or identify an image or anything image related, ChatGPT seems to be better.
That is a good point. With images, I think ChatGPT does have the edge currently.
Yeah.
Although it's hard to tell how long that's going to last. I feel like things change so much from month to month.
Mhm.
Okay, this next slide is about the step-by-step process for building your content workflow. This is a 5-step workflow that we recommend that's going to turn the content atom concept that we talked about earlier into something that you can actually run inside your practice. Step 1 is choosing your pillar format. Your primary content format can be a blog post, a webinar recording, a podcast episode, or a client Q&A session. It doesn't really matter what you use, so what you want to choose is just a format that fits your natural working style and the audience that you're trying to reach. Step 2 is that we're going to transcribe the spoken text using tools such as Otter AI, Fireflies, or Zoom's built-in tool. If it's a written content, however, we just need to finalize our draft. And that's going to become the raw input for everything that follows. Step 3 in the process is configuring your AI tool. This is where you're going to set up your custom GPT or your Claude project with your brand voice, your required disclaimers, formatting preferences, and any reference material you want to draw from. This is the step that most practices skip because it does require that upfront investment of time. Do not skip it. The configuration is what transforms your generic output into something that actually sounds like you. One easy tip for configuring to have your GPT or your project work more effectively is to include each of these things in separate documents as you attach them to the project. And make sure that the files are labeled really clearly. I like to label mine brand voice just for one file, disclaimers on another file, and then formatting preferences on a third file. And then include the references with very specific detailed topic names too. If you make it clear what you want the tool to reference as it's creating content, you're less likely to run into those hallucinations or mistakes, or just have the tool simply skip right over your preferences. Step 4 is to generate the derivatives. You're going to run your content through AI to generate your social posts, your email newsletter, your video script, FAQ page, checklist, or graphics copy. This is all in minutes, and this is where the multiplication happens. Step 5, of course, is to review, edit, and publish. You're always going to want to have a human review and edit each output before it goes anywhere. This step is non-negotiable because AI gets you a strong first draft very quickly, but a human with professional knowledge and editorial judgment gets it published and preserves the consistency of your brand. This is a system with defined outputs, a defined input process, and output you can trust. It can be repeated, it can be delegated, and it can scale as your process grows. And I'd like to point out that this is a simplified version of the system that the Foster team is using to produce content for all 60 plus of our clients who get monthly content services. And it's also the system that we use to help create this content course specifically. Each of our course lessons was created based on blogs and PDF books from our website, our internal content team meeting notes, and then just other existing resources that we had found about the best processes for AEO optimized content. And then as we progress here, we're going to turn around and use these lessons as inspiration for social media posts and email newsletters. Do you have anything you want to add about repurposing content, Jen?
No, I think you've covered it. The only thing I would add with these steps is it doesn't have to be the same person doing steps 1 through 5. Dana does a great job setting up our custom GPTs or cloud projects, and then sometimes Dana works on step 4, and sometimes other people work on step 4 or step 5. So
That's a really good point. Step 5 should always be someone who has the subject matter expertise to verify the facts. But the rest of this can be delegated to a paralegal or an office assistant or somebody in your company who just enjoys working with technology. What about you, Jessica? I know you use AI a lot to create our emails based on the web content that I write and the social media posts.
I do.
Is this a simple explanation of your system?
It is. Yep. It's perfect. I think the most value I found from AI in marketing is repurposing content, because like we've seen it's not ready to fully unleash and just be your marketing person or your marketing assistant. It's just not cohesive enough, but it can make it go so much farther, especially if you're on a tight budget to take one piece of content and then kind of just expand it, like you said. Something that I was thinking about though, Dana, that I've seen a lot lately as far as like generating content ideas in order to kind of repurpose them in different ways is Reddit. Reddit's become and other forums have become more and more popular, and I see a lot of people I see a lot of opportunity there to kind of see what people are asking others about on your topic to repurpose into video content, into a blog post. And you could use AI. I think you can theoretically copy a Reddit thread and put it into AI and get some really good content out of it there. But I think that's kind of an untapped source for a lot of people too.
That's a really good point. That is one that I tend to overlook just because I feel like it's a slightly younger audience, but that may
Right.
be changing. I've been lurking a little more on Reddit recently. What about you, Kate? Do you have anything to add about how you use your workflow for repurposing content?
Um, well, I think that the idea of repurposing content is just it's so important because sometimes we create something that is just like a truly great piece of content, but it doesn't work in all situations. So using AI to make that go further is not just like I mean certainly for the investment, but also like the emotional investment. Like sometimes you really love this piece and you know that it's awesome, and being able to see it go further is really good.
I like that. Do you have any tool recommendations? I'm just curious here for how to get better graphics. I have found that that's continually one that I have not mastered, how to turn a blog post into a really good infographic.
Yeah, I again like ChatGPT to me has an edge on Claude right now for that, and it does come down to the prompt and really saying what you need. Which of course goes back to knowing what you need for your audience and really identifying who's going to be looking at the graphic. So, I mean, if it has, it's only going to create something as good as what you give it, but some things are better at that than others. And I have not had great luck right now with Claude, but I'm imagining that will change, like you were saying, Dana. They're always evolving.
It's the spelling mistakes that are frustrating for me, I think. Even if I give it a prompt with very properly spelled words in the exact text I'd like it to use, I feel like it's always got one or two errors there that prevent me from moving any further.
Well, I did hear that Canva has announced that they're injecting some sort of AI into it. Now, we were talking recently, Dana, about how you can use Claude to generate images, Claude Cowork. We did a little test where Claude Cowork
Mm.
created an image and then we were able to open it in Canva and actually edit a lot of what was in there, which was fantastic. But Canva announced that they were going to be building their own sort of AI integration where you could theoretically have it create something and then be like, ah, this one word is spelled wrong and just go in and correct the spelling and move on with life without having to be like, but fix that word. And then it fixes the word, but it messes up the other word and you're like, no, but other than fix that. So I'm
That would
excited.
save us so much time. I think that's my AI wish list for
Yeah,
2027 is that they work out some of the bugs on image generation.
100%
Agreed.
agree.
Okay. We covered guardrails in depth in week 4, and everything we said then applies here with even greater urgency. Because a content system that runs without proper guardrails can produce a large volume of problematic content very quickly. The checklist on this slide is worth putting somewhere visible in your content workflow to ensure your content accurately and responsibly represents your brand. Build compliance language into your custom GPT or Claude project instructions from day one. If your disclaimers are baked into the system, they appear automatically in every output. You don't rely on remembering to add them manually. Always have a human review every piece of content before publishing. Always. This is not optional in legal or healthcare content, regardless of how good the AI output looks at first glance. Anonymize all client references without exception. The legal and ethical exposure from identifiable client information and marketing content is real and significant. Never let AI generate legal advice or medical diagnoses as content. AI can explain what a statute says. It cannot advise whether that statute applies to a reader's specific situation. The distinction matters, and your content should reflect it. Use AI for format and distribution, not for clinical or legal conclusions. AI is a production tool, not a subject matter expert. If office assistants and clerical staff are generating content, it needs to be reviewed by a lawyer or a healthcare professional for accuracy. Document your AI content process for professional liability purposes. A documented review process is evidence of professional diligence if questions ever arise. The final line on this slide says it plainly. AI assists with format and distribution. A human professional must always be the final reviewer. That division of labor is the foundation of any ethical AI-assisted content system.
If you are looking for an exact number for how much time you can save, though, I would say, and I think Jen's going to agree with me on this, that implementing AI into your content process, it's reasonable to expect that it's going to save you somewhere between 50 and 75% of your time. It's never going to be 100% because you're always going to have to look and review. But I would say 50% is reasonable if you're a pretty fast writer doing it manually, and 70, actually, I got that backwards there. So 50% if you are slow, and then 75% if you're a little quicker. Moving on here, I know we always include this at the end of every lesson, but if today's session has raised questions about how to apply this to your specific practice, or which format makes sense to start with, how to configure your AI tools, and what your calendar should look like for the next quarter, Jen and I are always here to help. You can scan the QR code on this slide to book a 30 or 60-minute content strategy session. We can look at what you currently have, talk through what you're looking to accomplish, and then identify practical first steps for building a content system that works inside your actual schedule. This is a low-pressure conversation. We're going to focus on where you are now, what's working, and what could be stronger, so you leave with a clear sense of what to do next. And then Foster also has an exclusive AI mastermind, and this is going to take your AI usage beyond content creation into sales, marketing, and operations. This exclusive group is going to discuss the latest AI tools and strategies through the lens of the Business Black Ops framework. And again, that includes the meta, strategic, and tactical levels. If you're in our content course, you will receive a free 6-month trial membership for the mastermind. You can look for the invite in your inbox, or if you don't see it, you can just reach out to Foster's customer service directly, and we will help make sure that you're all set up. Thank you for being a part of this course. You came in with expertise that most professionals never find the time to share, and you're going to leave with a system that puts that expertise to work. That's a real and meaningful shift, and we are all really glad that we could help be a part of that. Thank you.